Hello, welcome to the second part of the video lecture on Aristotle. In the previous video, we discussed things such as Aristotle's definition of tragedy and how Aristotle has delineated about the qualities of a good plot and so on. Now we continue with the discussion on Aristotle. According to Aristotle, as we have already seen, tragedy is the highest poetic form, and tragedy is defined by Aristotle as the imitation of an action, serious, complete, and of a certain magnitude, in language embellished with each kind of artistic ornament, the several kinds being found in separate parts of the play in the form of action, not of narrative, through pity and fear, effecting the proper catharsis of these emotions. So, this famous definition by Aristotle of tragedy delineates the nature of tragedy. That is, tragedy is a mimetic art form, it imitates action, and its objects, serious, complete, it should be of a certain magnitude. The medium of expression of tragedy, it should be in a language embellished with ornaments, it should be rhythmic, and the manner performed, not narrated, action, not narrative. The function, it should arouse the twin emotions of pity and fear, and finally, the effect of a tragedy, the purgation or the catharsis. Now let's take a look at the term catharsis. Catharsis is a very important concept in Aristotle's famous definition of tragedy. So, catharsis is a Greek term. It is taken from medicine. It literally means purification. The origin of the word catharsis is from the Greek verb katharos. Now, the main function of catharsis in tragedy is to arouse the twin emotions of pity and fear. So, Aristotle argues that tragedy has a healthy and a humanizing effect because of this catharsis effect on the audience or on the readers. Now, four meanings are attributed to the term catharsis. The first, therapeutic. Therapeutic refers to the purgation, the physical purgation of the body or the cleansing of the body from all kinds of impurities. The second is moral. It refers to the purification of the mind from excessive emotions, from all kinds of toxicities, so purifying the mind. We are made aware that goodness, virtues, and innocence shall always prevail. The moral aspect of catharsis thus awakens us to a new scale of values. The third is structural. It refers to the process by which the protagonist, the tragic hero, is given the chance to absolve himself of all the evils that he has perpetrated. And the last meaning, the intellectual meaning of catharsis renders this effect as a kind of an insightful or as an aesthetic experience. Now, we have already seen that Aristotle has talked about the six formative elements of a tragedy. Now, the character or ethos is the second formative element. The first formative element, plot, has already been discussed in the previous video. Now, character or ethos, action ensues from character, which should have four essential elements. So the characters must be good. And what does good mean? Goodness means grandeur and possessing qualities such as courage, uprightness, and determination. Wickedness may also be introduced if required by the necessity of the plot. The characters should always manifest a moral purpose. The characters should be appropriate, that is, they should have characteristics peculiar to their age, gender, social rank, status, and profession. The characters should also have likeness, they should be true to life. and modeled on human beings who experience joys and sorrows, love and hatred, and should also possess virtues as well as weaknesses. The characters must also be consistent. That is, there should be no sudden change in the character, it should be a gradual evolution. The actions of a character must be the necessary and probable outcome of his real nature. Aristotle enumerates the qualities of a tragic hero in the Poetics. The tragic hero must be a character of noble stature. The term used is paudeus, another Greek term which we will discuss later in this video. And the character or the tragic hero must occupy a high rank in society. He should either be a king or a warrior or a commander of an army and so on. And the character, a tragic hero, the character of a tragic hero should not be perfect. It should be a mix of good as well as evil. This lack of perfection in the character is attributed to a term which Aristotle uses, hamartia. Hamartia means tragic flaw. We will look at the term hamartia in detail in this video later. Now, the common types of hamartia, the common types of tragic flaw that we usually see are pride, ambition, and jealousy. So, pride, the Greek term for it is hubris, is uh, the most common tragic flaw that causes the misfortune and often leads to the downfall of the tragic hero. Now, I have given some examples there of tragic heroes who have suffered from tragic flaws or who had these particular tragic flaws, like Caesar, for example, who had the tragic flaw ambition, and hence that led to his tragic fall and ultimately death. Similarly, the case of Macbeth, these are all Shakespeare characters, Shakespearean tragic heroes. Othello, it was jealousy that led to his downfall. So, most often the punishment exceeds the crime and ends in the death of the hero. Now, the first example that I have given there, Oedipus. Let's take a look at how Oedipus becomes an Aristotelian tragic hero in a while later, just a little later. Before that, let me just skim through the other qualities. We have already discussed peripetia and anagnorisis. Peripetia, again, we discussed this while discussing the structure of a complex plot. So, peripetia is that point in the climax where there is a reversal of fate. The hero experiences a change of fortune. And anagnorisis is that particular moment in time when the hero makes an important discovery. He realizes an awful truth, and that leads to the downfall. So, nemesis is the end where the punishment the protagonist receives, a punishment that he cannot avoid, and it occurs because of his hubris or pride. And again, the end result, catharsis, feeling of pity and fear felt by the audience because of the inevitable downfall of the protagonist. So, catharsis, according to Aristotle, is both pleasurable and instructive, and it leads us to an intellectual awareness of the relationship between the particular and the universal, culminating in an experience that clarifies all doubts. The end result of catharsis is an emotional balance that leads to a restoration of both physical and emotional health. So, Oedipus is one of the classic examples of an Aristotelian tragic hero. I hope all of you are familiar with the story of Oedipus Rex. It is a tragedy by Sophocles. So, Oedipus, when he was born, there was a prophecy that he would marry his mother and murder his father and then marry his mother. So, his parents decided to kill him, but the person was to whom the baby was entrusted to, instead of killing him, he leaves it in a forest where he is found by a shepherd, and then he is brought up by the king and queen of a neighboring kingdom, and he grows up thinking that they are his original parents. And one day Oedipus hears of this prophecy, and thinking that he would fulfill the prophecy, he decides to run away from the kingdom. But he doesn't know that those people whom he believed to be his parents are not his real parents. So he comes to Thebes, where on the way to Thebes, he unknowingly kills the king of Thebes, Laius, who is his real father. And on reaching Thebes, he marries his mother, Jocasta, and so on. So that is how the tragedy goes on. And the tragic flaw of Oedipus is hubris, excessive pride, and disrespect for the natural order of things. Now, the term hero itself is derived from Greek and it means a person who faces adversity. A hero demonstrates courage and faces danger fearlessly. So, Oedipus is a tragic hero. He goes through the all those tragical elements like peripetia and agnoresis, and he confronts his tragic downfall due to fate. And the story of Oedipus Rex illustrates the perfect example of the story of a tragic hero. Another example will be William Shakespeare's Julius Caesar. I'm sure all of you are familiar with Julius Caesar. It is prescribed for study in the first year in your co-paper reading drama. So Julius Caesar is also an example of a tragic hero. He fulfills certain Aristotelian qualities of a tragic hero. So he has this his tragic fall or downfall is because of hamartia, that is hubris, again excessive pride and ambition. Now let's take a look at two terms that are important. Spoudeus, we have already come across this term. Spoudeus is a Greek term that means noble character. So tragedy imitates Spoudeus, that means noble character, whereas in comedy you find it, in comedy the characters are all considered to be base characters. So Spoudius refers to the nobility in character, and it is, according to Aristotle, he says in the Poetics that Spoudius is morally determined and not socially constructed. Character is what determines moral choice. The next important term is hamartia. The term hamartia, it is a Greek term derived from archery, and it can be translated as error in judgment, mistake, weakness, and so on. And the most common translation of hamartia is tragic flaw. Now, the biblical meaning of this term is sin. So, what happens is the tragic hero, because he possesses hamartia or this tragic flaw, commits a grave error and receives his punishment. Now, we've already seen that the most common form of hamartia is hubris, which means pride, arrogance, overconfidence, etc. Now we come to the last four formative elements of a tragedy. We've already looked at the first two, plot and character. Now, thought, plot, and character are the most important. They are the mimetic elements of a tragedy. Then diction, which is the fourth formative element. Diction means language embellished with artistic ornaments. Then the fifth one is song. Song is one of the artistic ornaments that is used to make the performance more effective and more appealing to the audience. It is mainly used to entertain the audience. And the last stage, the spectacle, it is the presentation on stage, the final performance. So these are the six formative elements of the tragedy according to Aristotle. So plot, character, and thought imitate the mental and emotional responses of man. These three constitute the poet's objects of imitation in a tragedy. In order to accomplish these three effects, the poet employs diction, spectacle, and song. So, with this, the second part of Aristotle concludes. In the next part, which is the final part of the video lecture on Aristotle, I will be discussing how Aristotle compares tragedy with epic poetry, why Aristotle considers tragedy as the superior form of art, And again, the differences in the concept mimesis as said by Plato and by Aristotle. And I will also discuss a few questions that are usually asked in the university examinations. Hope you enjoyed this lecture. I hope it was useful for you. Thank you so much for your patient listening and stay safe.